recording. Yeah, some more people should be joining, but maybe they are just finishing the arena and then coming over. Okay, so let us get going. You know, the course that we are using is the chess strategy for beginners course. Okay, and what we are today we are looking at is continuing some of the topic. Okay, winning with a large material advantage. Okay, so last time we looked at it like bishop. If you have an extra bishop, then generally, as long as you protect the pawn with the bishop, then you have ample time. Like this, you get into a position like this, right? Look at it. White has got a pawn and a bishop, and now once the pawn is protected by the bishop, now it doesn't matter that opposition who has got the thing, etc. White's king can aram se come at any point of time, and then he can push. So there is no question of because there is absolutely no problem in coming to the and pushing the pawn and getting it queen. Right? So that is the key thing with bishop, extra bishop. You just have to ensure that the pawn is protected by the bishop and bishop is protected by the pawn both ways. So that is what this achieves. If you see the other way around, then also it will win because the bishop will be protecting the pawn from behind, and the king will have to attack the bishop. So even then it will win, but this is always the bishop should be in the front. That is the most advantageous. Okay. Now next thing is that how to win with an extra knight. So the technique, there is a small nuance, but once you know it, it becomes very easy. See here, white's king is away from the pawn. The pawn is attacked by the black king, and you have to protect it with the knight. And there are two ways you can protect it, right? But only one of them is correct. And which one is correct? So you can protect by taking the knight to e2 or taking it to e4.
So e2.
E2 is correct. Yeah, E2 is correct. Because if you go to E4, right, the black king will come in between the pawn and the thing, and it will attack both. And the knight is not defended. So the knight will have to move somewhere. And when it moves, it can no longer protect the pawn, right? And you had seen that the thing, that unlike a bishop, which can move along a diagonal and continue to protect a pawn, the knight is not like that. Every time it will alternate color. So now, right now it is protecting. The moment you attack it and force it to move, it will no longer be protecting the pawn, and then you will gobble up the pawn, and then it's a draw, right? So this happens. So that is why always, and the technique is move behind the pawn, okay, not ahead of the pawn, because the pawn is moving in one direction, right? So the knight should go behind the pawn and defend it. And now even if the king attacks it, actually it is not a problem, because now you can afford to, the black king can never take the knight. If he takes the knight, then the pawn runs through and the king can never catch the pawn, right? Because it has to go one more step away and behind, and then you can never catch the pawn. So that is the reason why you should go with the knight, you should go behind. And once you go behind the king, even if it is attacking, it will not do anything. It cannot do anything. So now you get time to bring up your king. And once you bring up your king and you are able to protect your pawn, and then it is very easy because you have a lot of tempos because of the extra bishop, extra knight. So that opposition does not work here. With what normally works in just king and pawn endings, that technique does not work here because you are able to get the knight in and force the king out, right? So in this position also, see, normally at this position, otherwise if there was no knight, then it would have been a draw because the king will have to come to c6 and then it will be a stalemate. But here it is not like that. You can just move the knight without getting into c6 and then force the black king out, and then queen. So that is why after that it is easy. So only thing you remember, protecting the pawn, you should protect it from behind with in case of a knight in endgame.
So,
yeah.
So I have not been attending actually. So what have we been doing? So what are we doing now?
Yeah, we have started various things in the we have been doing this section, first section of the chess strategy for beginners, utilizing decisive material. I think we looked at
coach. Why have you not sent the test results?
Test results. Oh, yeah. I think I have to send it. Yeah. Let me see. Okay. Then let us go to the next one, which is what? This is okay. So look at it. White has got two pawns, but they are all doubled and on the rook file. You remember, rook pawns are especially difficult to queen because the opposite king, if it captures the square, which is the queening square, then it becomes difficult to take him from that, take him away from that. Right? That is why these pawns can become thing. But in this position, black also has got a pawn advance. See, black is going up the board here. Notice the coordinates. The first rank is at the top and the 8th rank is at the bottom. So we are looking at the board from black side. Okay, so black's pawn is advanced. It is not attacking the knight. In fact, the knight is controlling the next square of the pawn, which is going to be a2. So it is keeping an eye on that. Otherwise, that pawn can be queen. And white wants to queen at least one of the rook pawns. Okay, but you don't know how. Okay, so let us see how it goes about. So black king first of all comes to f7, and he is ready to basically block the white king. In case white king tries to come front, he is going to keep moving like this. But white king right now does not, only because there is an extra knight, he is able to take care of certain things. So we'll see how the knight is used. Okay, so black king goes to g7. Yeah, he's saying that now I will be able to block the pawn. And then white says, okay, I have an extra tempo, so I'll move h4. So black king goes to g8 and white king comes to g6. Black king is still saying that, okay, I'm controlling the queening square. How are you going to take me out? And if you take away the knight, then my pawn is going to queen. Only thing is that, yeah.
So it is h5.
Yeah, h5 is what white plays now. But what is the idea beyond this now? Right? So
Wait, what can you? Oh,
so now how does he?
let's see.
What is the idea now for the knight? Don't tell me the move. Tell me the idea.
So the idea for the knight is to go to let the pawn promote, so then he can checkmate on what is it called? This.
F7. Correct. So that is what the knight aims, and you have to calculate exactly, because you know that the moment the knight moves, the pawn will become queen in 2 more moves. So you have to calculate everything and see whether the queen will be able to interfere and stop it or not. So key things to check is whether the pawn is becoming a queen by giving a check to the opponent's king. No, it is not, because the white's king is on g6. The pawn will become queen on a1. So it is not a check. Okay, that at least is good. Okay, the knight, where it is going to, how many moves it will take to land on f7? Currently it is on b4. It has to land on f7. How many moves it will take? So you have to calculate like this. It will take 3 moves, and just it is in time. So otherwise it would not have been able to. So knight comes to c6. The pawn pushes forward. Now the pawn cannot be stopped. Okay, now there is no way for the knight. That's why it's a decision, critical decision, whether you want to go away from the vigil on the pawn or not. And only if you are very sure, you should go away. But now it is okay. The knight is going to e5, and pawn is queening, and there is no check, there is no pin, there is nothing, and the knight is coming to f7 with a check, and it is a checkmate, right? So I mean, I'm not saying that this is how it will happen every time, but such ideas happen. So you have to know this. Okay, everyone saw this, how white utilized the thing. Otherwise it would have been a draw. Okay, if this was not possible, then it would have been a draw, because the rook pawns, doubled rook pawns means not much. Okay, next position. Again, what is the key idea? Look at black is coming down the board. We are looking at a normal position here. White is at the bottom of the board. White's pawn is a
Is it black to move or white?
white to move. If it is black to move, then it is a draw immediately.
So you can say bishop. Like the idea will be to bring your bishop to that protects the square in front of the pawn,
Yeah.
and then after he moves.
Correct. Correct. Because the pawn can never be defended by the bishop directly, right? Pawn is on light square, and if it advances, it will get killed. If it remains there, it is light square bishop. The king is going to attack it, and you can never defend it, and your king is far away. So the only way to defend is it indirectly defend it, right? Indirectly, but you have a choice, but okay, and which one you choose it. So here you are choosing, rather than going to bishop to c3. Why don't you go to bishop to c3 instead? Why are you saying bishop to a3 it should go? Because bishop to a3 not only will control the b4 square, but it will also block black's pawn from coming down the board, which it will not happen if the bishop is going to c3. So that is the reason why. See, bishop c3 would be a mistake, because black will push the pawn, and if white pushes the pawn, then king comes here, and now bishop goes to d2, king pawn pushes forward. See what happens. And if the bishop does not come to d2, controls the diagonal on the long diagonal, then the pawn will fall, right? In that case also it's a draw, right? So whichever way, it's the draw. So that is why the bishop goes to a3. And now if the pawn black pushes the pawn, white pushes his pawn ahead. Now it is not possible. See, black king will going to try to attack the bishop, but because the bishop is now from behind, okay, so now he can push the pawn ahead and you will get a tempo. So the king will kill the bishop, pawn will push ahead, king has to now come back out of the way of the pawn. So 2 extra moves are taken for the king, and that is what is enough. The queen, and it is a, if it is, look at it, if what the king has to either go in front of the pawn, right, because it is a check. If there was no check, then the pawn would have gone to the 7th rank and it would have been a draw, because rook pawns and bishop pawns on 7th rank draw against the queen, right, unless the other king is very close by. So here, because it is a check and the black king does not want to go in front of the pawn, right, so he has to go away, and now that gives enough time for white to now prevent it. So he will come queen to e5, because where the queen actually will go directly to a1 square and sit there if given the chance, right, and then black cannot do anything. So black does not want to allow that. But now queen comes to e1. Now this check, forcing the king to go in front of the pawn, right, and then it is easy. Now you have captured the pawn. So now it should be easy to checkmate, right? So remember how the technique was used. Even if you could not support the pawn directly, you can use an extra bishop to indirectly support the pawn. There are many ideas like this of indirect defense. Okay. All right. So with this now we have come. There is one more topic that we will see. There are a lot of studies, right? There are a lot of studies. What are studies? Or problems? Problems are like where you are given to find, given a position, and sometimes it is artificial position. Okay, it may not have occurred in a game anywhere, but it would be a thing, and there will be normally it will be either. So because it is artificially created position, so you always decide that by convention it is that white is going to play always, and either he wins or he draws. Okay, so that is how the things are published. So it is published. So either because actually you can always turn the position anywhere around. Anyway, it is synthetic. It is not from some actual game. Then you can all as well tell, and that is why basically so it will be white to play and win, or it will be a white to play and draw. Okay. So now look at this position. There is a particular technique that we can use. Many times what you have to look at it. Now this is a problem. Okay. So look at this puzzle. White has got a rook and a queen. Black king is hemmed in by his rook and 2 pawns. And now white to play and win. In fact, it might be some play and checkmate also very quickly within 3 moves, etc. So how does white go about it? So many times the position will give a clue. Okay, so you have to slightly be like a detective. You have to work on different clues. Okay, so now here, what is the clue that you get? A, because the black king is hemmed in, so black, you can force a zugzwang on black. Okay, you can force a zugzwang on black. That is what it looks like. But how do you force a zugzwang? You have to imaginatively see it. Okay. So in
So
yeah.
so 1 second.
Yeah.
So we can take the queen to h8.
Queen to h8. If you take to h8, then the rook will kill it, right?
Yes, sir, but then we can take our rook to b1.
Your rook to b1, but then the king will go to d8.
Yes, sir, but after giving check, we will get his rook, and then it will be rook versus 2 pawns.
It will be rook versus 2 pawns, but the 2 pawns are connected, so it is not that easy. Okay, 2 pawns are connected. So you are saying queen to h8. Interesting. Queen to h8. Rook will take it. Rook will take it, and once you take it, then you are going to b rook to b1. You are going because you want to skewer the thing, right? You want to skewer. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea, but there is a much stronger thing that white has, where he can force a checkmate. Okay.
Maybe immediately rook to b1.
Immediately rook to b1 would be what can black do if you do that? Black can probably play d6.
Yes,
Black
sir, but
d6.
I think you can get his rook if you like give checks with the queen.
Yeah, possibility. But see here, but if you see here, there is, because the king is so much hemmed in, right? There are some special things. See, from the left side of the king, everything is, because the white king is in such a position that you can actually have some serious threat. So in this position, queen goes to d6. It's a mate in 2 after this. Actually, this position would have been given as mate in 2, and then you would have to find it. Okay, so I did not tell that it was mate in 2, but the queen goes to d6, and now see, no matter what black does, it is going to be checkmate on the next move. So let us see. If black kills the queen, then obviously you can just, because now the c file has opened, and you can give a check, and everything else is black has got his own wall of his own pieces on the one side, because of which it is a checkmate, right? So it cannot. So now what if black simply pushes the pawn, c6 pawn, it is pushes, right? Then queen will go to b8 with the help of the king, and then it is going to become checkmate. And if, what are the other? King cannot move. The other pawn now cannot move. What? Otherwise, the d pawn now is blocked. It cannot move. Only other thing is that the rook can go somewhere. But if rook goes somewhere, then queen takes d7 is checkmate. All right. So this study was created by Max Huey, a future world champion. It was created in 1927. He became a world champion in 1935. But this is to quickly illustrate. Okay, so there are various ideas. And many times the study will always have some such surprising moves. Okay, it will not be some obvious moves. So again, this is a position with mate in 3. Okay, mate in 3.
The last position I had found the mate in 3.
Last position you found mate in 3, but target was mate in 2. So whatever is the most thing. So yeah, mate in 3 for this position. And you can see the thing. I know you can see the.
So white to play?
Yeah, white to play. So again, what you have to notice is black king is hemmed in by the c6 pawn of white, but c6 pawn is attacked currently by the rook. But if the rook is diverted, then that pawn and the c7 pawn of black together make it a very difficult thing for the black king. Then if you give a check, it will be the black king will not have any space to go down the 8th rank if you give a check. But how can you give a check? Currently the king is there on the blocking the rook. So king has to come out. But if king comes out, then the rook will take the c6 pawn. And then your check is not going to happen.
Maybe you can play queen to a7.
Yeah, so queen to a7, as you can see, the solution is a surprising solution. But why it works, you have to see it. Why does it work? It is diverting the rook and to a square which is next to the square that the white king will, black king will go to. So now after this, now what is white going to threaten? White is going to threaten a checkmate down the last rank. And no matter which square the king goes, if he goes to b8 also, then also the checkmate is going to be there because he cannot come to a7 because black rook is occupying a7. On the other hand, if he comes to d8, then also the rook check will hit because it cannot come to e7 because white king has come to, and that is why white king should come to f7 and not go to h7. If the white king goes to h7 after this move, if the white king goes to h7, thinking that, oh, this way also it will be, no, then it will not be checkmate because king will come to d8, black king will come to d8, rook will give a check, the black king will escape from e7. So it is important that white king also comes to f7, and now it is a forced checkmate. Right? Now it's a forced checkmate. So there are so like this, you actually in this course you will get many problems. I will enable it soon for you folks, but a lot of problems are there like this. This is also an interesting problem. Made in 4 moves. Idea is very important. What to get idea. Black king is already on the edge of the board, hemmed in by his own pawns. And only thing is that there is a knight which is nicely defending the squares which are what do you call? So white queen can, if it goes to g3, then it will be a checkmate. But the knight is controlling the g3 square, right? Other thing is that white king, white queen, if it goes to f4, then it is also going to be a checkmate. But f4, how does it go without allowing the black king to escape? Anything else the white queen moves, then the black king is going to come out and then going to roam around, right? Which you don't want, because then it will take a lot of time once it comes out.
So?
Yeah.
So can we play queen g8?
Queen g8. Queen g8. Queen g8. Then what does black play? Black will play knight to g5.
Okay, he brings it to play.
What about queen to e1?
Queen to e1. Queen to e1 check. Then the king will escape out.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe queen to g6.
Queen to g6, then knight will come to g5.
What about g7? Because then once the knight moves, you can give check on
look at it.
d4.
What is the idea that, see, queen goes to g7.
You can give check on d4 as the knight moves.
Someone has joined. I think Vihan, you may have to go on with.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that was noise.
And then once the knight moves, you can give
So
check
now
on
the
d4.
knight is going to block it by going to g5, and queen will come to d4. And remember, And when now the queen is coming to d4 and giving a check. Earlier also it would have come to c4. If you had, somebody was saying earlier queen to g8, right? Queen to g8, from there you could have come to c4 and given the check. But then knight would have blocked anyway. But now remember, if you see, this position is a mate in 4. Okay, it is not a win. Obviously, it is going to be winning for white because white has got a queen and black only has got a knight and king is in a bad shape. So it is no great shakes that you are going to win. Can you checkmate in 4 moves? And that is the thing. Now, taking the knight back, killing the knight will not help you, because if you kill the knight and give a check, unless you are on f4, then only it's a checkmate. Now, if you kill the knight on e4, it's no checkmate. The king is going to come out and it is going to take a lot of time for you to checkmate.
So we have 2 more moves.
So now queen goes to g1 back. Now, can you see what has happened? The original position, same position white has come. Only thing is that he has passed the move to black now. So this is like considered as gaining a move or losing a move, right? This is a very important thing in chess, right? How do you gain a tempo or lose a tempo? Lose a tempo, especially in the end game, right? So now exactly same position as we started with. Only thing is that it is not white to move, it is black to move. And now black is in a Zugzwang. The pawns cannot move, the king cannot move, only the knight can move. But the moment now the knight moves, it will no longer be able to control the g3 square, because that is also the principle that the knight, it will always alternate colors, and hence whatever square color tree it is controlling, there is no way it can control on the next move, right? So you are forcing the knight to move, and now it is a checkmate, right? So what is the technique to solve such problems that would have seen? Just observe it. Acha, then you get a clue here that nothing else can move off black. Okay, so if you continue that, only the knight can move, and now knight is crucial in holding the g3 square. So can you force the knight to move away? That will be the clue for you, and then you can solve this problem, right? Then you will go around. First you will check g6, you will check g8. Finally, then you will hit upon, oh, g7. If I come this way, I can come. So like this is the way to look at it. Okay, this is a very interesting problem. Again, focus on the ideas. Don't look at the moves. Focus on the ideas and first observe and look at it, and what can white do? White has got 2 pawns but very distant and separated, right? Black has got only a bishop. Black can never win this with just a bishop, right? So at the most, black can hope for a draw by ensuring that none of the pawn queens. If any one of the pawn queens, then it will be a win for white. How can white ensure that at least one pawn queens? Because what is the idea? Black king is very close to the g pawn. It is already on f6. So it can very easily block the g pawn. Now after that, but key thing is that the a pawn is going to run. Can the black bishop prevent the queening of the a pawn? That is the question.
But sir, if the king plays well, then it cannot.
Yeah, but how does he play well? That is what. So what is the idea?
Sir, going to d5 and diagonally to c6 and all.
No, so white king, if it first goes to d5, right? So
I think white king
not work.
I think white king shouldn't move.
No, sir. The white king's first, the white's first move should be a5, pawn to a5.
Pawn to a5, he pushes the pawn and starts creating the threat, because now there is only one square on which it has to be intercepted, because there are 3 moves out of which 2 squares are light squares, only one is a dark square. Black has got a dark squared bishop, so black does not have much time now. He has to somehow move to catch the pawn on a7 square, otherwise it is going to queen, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
bishop already.
So sir, black bishop will come to f8.
f8, it has to come to f8 because the king is blocking, otherwise.
But sir, now
Yeah,
the king can come to d5,
yeah,
or it can come to d4. d5 is the better move.
d5, yeah, d5 is a better move because it will control the bishop, right? And now bishop cannot come to c5. It was hoping to come to c5 so that it can blockade the pawn on a7. But now it cannot do that. So it wants to now it says, okay, let me do it from some other way then.
h6.
It will go to h6 and say, I will come now to e3, and from there I will try to block it.
But sir, the king can come back to e4.
If king comes back to e4, then black bishop goes back to f8. Then it will be repetition.
Oh, sir, it can. Sir, the king can come to. So. Sir, the pawn can be given one more, like it can go to a8, a6.
If it goes to a6, the black bishop will come to e3, and then there is no way you can do anything. Black bishop will land on e3, it will protect it will put a vigil on the pawn, and there is no way white can do anything.
But sir, okay, yes sir.
Right? So the right move is to sacrifice the other pawn.
I was thinking of.
And why? You have to know. But
then the king will come downwards, and then it could not get back because it's out of the place. Out
see,
of
now,
the 3 squares.
from h6, it would have gone back to f8. But because the black king is on f6, now bishop cannot go back onto that diagonal. So now white king comes here, prevent the bishop from coming to e3, and now bishop
now
goes
promote
to
the pawn.
No, not so fast. If you push it, then bishop will come to h4.
Okay, now come to f4.
Now come to ef3. And now there is no way for the bishop to do anything, because from h4 also it can come to f2, but f2 is controlled by the white king, and it can go to g5. Black bishop can go to g5 and come to e3, but that is also controlled. So none of the squares it will be able to come to. And anything else that it does, there is no point in attacking the pawn, because if it attacks the pawn moves ahead, and then you can never catch it. Right? So there is no way now to catch the pawn.
Sir, what do you mean by ef3? It should be kf3, right?
No, kf3 only. King f3 only. On
Okay.
f3 only. Yeah. So now the bishop is lured on a diagonal from which now it can never safely intercept the white's pawn. So now it is a win. After this, now, I mean, it's a plus minus. So it is win. Okay, very interesting study. So these studies help. So they look artificial and they sometimes look weird, but there is a lot of ideas in that, and that actually enriches you. It helps you. This is a draw. Actually, this is a draw. Black pawn is very much advanced. So that way, actually, ideally black should be winning, because there is no way to prevent the black pawn from queening, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, it is a draw because when you go to b7 check, it will not go to. It would rather go to a8 rather than.
No. A8 is a blunder, because the rook will go to c7, threatening checkmate and also attacking the pawn. So now it is white is winning. So black going to a8 is a blunder. Black king has to go to c8.
c8. Yes, sir.
c8. And now there is remember that, like the Saavedra position, there is only one defense for white, in the sense to get a draw. Otherwise, the pawn is now queening and there is no way to prevent it. Only thing is that rook goes to b5. The idea being, after you queen, the rook comes to c5 and forks the king and the queen, and
It's a draw when you
then gets
kill
a
it.
stalemate. Right? Remember that theme was there in the Saavedra position. So this was the thing. So this is the very interesting study, how you could draw. Again, if you see this position and go back, then you can just see that there is absolutely no way for the rook to prevent the pawn from queening. So that much you should get it after maybe 3-4 minutes of study, that there is absolutely no way to prevent the pawn from queening. Then if you are given that, rook has to still draw, that means either it has to get into a theoretical drawn endgame, or you have to get into a stalemate. Then the idea will click. Rook, pawn is going to queen, and then my king is here, and how can I get into a stalemate? Then you can get it, and then you'll be able to see that rook to b5. Okay. So like this, there are many of these puzzles. This is also an interesting puzzle.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
And sir, I wanted to ask, will I also get testing lesson for winning the third area, the previous levels prize
Oh,
arena?
did I not give it to you yet?
No, sir.
Oh, sorry. That is pending on me. I will give it to you immediately.
Yeah,
I will
no.
give it to you immediately. Okay, tomorrow itself I will do. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
sir. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. Okay. So I somehow was under the impression that I've done it and I just forgot it. So no problem. So I will
So
do
like,
it. Yeah.
Yes.
sir, if multiple people get like the same like score, like is it counted or?
Yeah, I mean, I give the certificate to all the people that are there, like top 3 people, but prizes I give to the whatever is the first 2 or 3, depending on how it is.
And
Right?
even if you have 4 and the tie break and the points are same, you get a certificate.
Certificate I give. Yeah, certificate certainly I give.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a very interesting study, but again, I will say it is available here, but you look at it and see whether you can solve it. Okay. White's pawn is attacked by the black rook, but it is 1 step away from queening, but it is not going to queen because the rook is attacking it. Okay. H pawn. The other pawn is 3 steps away from queening, and there is a rook which is in front, but the rook is attacked by the king. So we have to figure out what is the way that white can win this. Okay. Again, you have to use this kind of a, if you apply these detective methods, 1 by 1 clue, if you try to logically think, and then the problem may come to you. Because you know that you are not going to be able to save the h7 pawn. h7 pawn is going to go for sure. Then, but h7 pawn, you have to imagine what happens if h7 pawn takes it. If the black rook takes it, then there is a chance for a skewer, because then you can give the check from the other side and the king will move, and then it will be you will be able to pick the rook. That is the theme, right? So that theme will tell you that the first move has to be rook a6, because now the rook, if he simply takes the rook, okay, then you have to then work out. But this, if you do king to d6, and then only thing is that you will be able to kill the rook, but then what happens if black gets a stalemate now? So this is the thing, and then you have to figure out how to prevent it. Okay, but first move I told rook to a6, and then you can figure out. Okay, with that, this is the homework, and with that we are stopping here. We will meet next week for the next section in the thing, the 3 stages of the chess game. We'll look at
Yes, homework on WhatsApp.
homework. No, not on WhatsApp. You can directly do it. I will send this image. And you can do it. Okay.
And excuse me, sir, please add my other number in the group, and also I'll message hi to you from there and write my name and remove my other one. Okay.
So you will have to tell me which one to remove, because I have now 3 of your numbers. I think so.
Sir, I have left from one of them.